back for part 2 of the NSX stereo install. I know a lot of you guys watched part 1 and you guys gave me a lot of good feedback, good positive comments, what I can improve. So for part 2, our job is we're gonna start to run the wiring for the new stereo system. And as you can see, I took the passenger seat out. It makes it a lot easier to get to all the speakers and cables. I mean, you don't have to do it, but it's only 4 bolts, 4 14mm bolts. You take it, unplug the seat. You can put the seat here on the side. It makes it a lot easier to work, okay? So let's get to it. The first thing we're gonna do is remove some of these back panels here, because ultimately the battery's in the front of the car. We're gonna have to run a power cable from the front all the way to the back trunk. In this case is where we're gonna put the amplifier. If you're gonna put the amplifier somewhere else, obviously you don't need to run the cable all the way to the back. For example, if you put the amplifier over here. But in this case, the customer wants the amplifier in the trunk. So we're gonna run the cable from the engine bay, okay, all the way through here and all the way to the back trunk, all right? So to do that, we took the seat out, we took out most of the panels over here, as you can see, and I'll show you how we ran the cable in a second from there. But we're gonna disassemble this section right here. All right, so we're gonna take all these panels out. The first panel you wanna take out, these panels are actually very easy. They're all pop release clips. So, okay, looks like these panels are already loose, but this panel is held in place by nothing more than 3 clips. You can see that. So we got 3 clips. We pop this panel off. All right, let's set this aside over here. This panel, you can see, fell off already because it's pretty loose. But again, it's only held by 4 clips on these 4 holes. And then you got the 3 clips here at the top. So you take out the top panel first, take out this panel second. And once you get these panels out, there's gonna be 3 screws you're gonna remove. These are the Phillips. So there's one, okay? And there should be another one here and another one there. When these 3 are removed, that releases this panel. This panel is only held in place by clips along here. So just remove this easily like that, kind of pull it out of the way. And then just pull this panel out. All right, so set this piece aside, make sure you don't scratch it. Put it over here. Now when this is out, you can kind of see the old cables. This is the previous stereo install was done this way. So we are gonna take all the old stuff out and run new cables. This is the old cables. And I don't know, you can see, but there is a hole here that we use. And can you get a shot of this? But there's a hole right here, factory grommet. We can use this grommet. You see that right there? So we don't have to drill any holes. This is the best grommet to pass your wiring through from the front to the back. So you just pull the grommet out, and you can see we ran, the cables through here. And then you follow the wiring. Okay, you see all the wiring is here. Okay, so we're gonna take all the old speaker wiring out, and we're gonna run all new cables to the front of the car and all the way to the back. And then we're gonna run new RCA cables as well from the front to the back for the trunk. Because right now this is a stock radio in here. So we're new RCA cables, we're gonna run new speaker cables, a new power cable, and we'll feed it all into the trunk, all right?
Okay, what we're looking at here is kind of a mock-up. I know when it comes to car stereos, there's a lot of wiring, and it's hard to show you guys everything that's happening inside the car. So I thought I'll do this quick mock-up on the bench. These are just old components sitting around, so not the actual components we're installing, particular NSX. But I wanted to show you what the components are and what you need to purchase if you're planning to do the installation yourself. So let's take a look here. You got an amp. This is just a representation of a 4-channel amplifier, your standard double DIN deck. If you're going to run the standard configuration, the NSX, which is a set of front speakers and a subwoofer, you're going to need a set of 4-channel RCAs like you see here. 4-channel meaning 2 sets, 1 set for the front and 1 set for the subwoofer. If you're only going to do front speakers, then you just need 1 pair of these. Okay, so just 1 pair going from this side to the amplifier, which I have plugged in here for demonstration. You see how there's 1 extra set left over on this side, and there's 1 extra set left on this side. So if you're doing 2-channel RCAs from radio to amplifier is all you need. And then from the amplifier, you're going to run the speaker wires, which are on the side of the amplifier, from here back to the center of the dash, which is where your speaker wires are. The key, I think a good component to get is make sure you pick up one of these harnesses. You could hardwire it in your NSX, but it's so much easier with one of these. This is an SOS harness. All you need to really use is a couple of these leads here. You got the yellow, which is your constant power. This is going to be fed to the yellow wire that's coming from the back of the radio. And then you have the black wire, which is ground. Again, match it up to the black wire from the radio. The red wire is your ignition wire. This wire will see power when the key is turned on. And that will turn the radio on. So the red wire is ignition, yellow wire is constant 12 volts. The orange wire is going to be your illumination lead, so connect that to the orange lead coming out of the radio again. The blue lead is going to be your amp turn-on lead or your power antenna lead, depending on how you hook it up. Some aftermarket radios, they have two blue wires coming out of the back. One is going to be for your power antenna, one is to trigger the amplifier. In some radios, you just have one lead. So the radios that have two leads are ideal for the NSX because one that controls the power antenna, when you listen to CDs or DVDs, the power antenna will not come up. If you only have one blue lead coming from the radio, then that means whenever you turn on the radio, whether you listen to CD, DVD, or CarPlay, the power antenna is still up. So that's something to consider. So this harness is really nice to have. We're not going to be using these two if you're wondering what this is. This is typically used if you're using the NSX stock system with an aftermarket radio, but we're not using these. So we're only going to be connecting to these particular leads. And then for the speaker wires, we're going to tap into the speaker leads on the other side of the harness directly. You're going to need one, typically the radio beside your RCAs, you're going to have the power, the antenna input. So in the car, this is what it's going to look like on your NSX. So you're going to find that one, unplug it from the stock radio, and just plug it in this location right there in the radio. All the modern radios now, they have a USB port that allows you to plug in your phone for auxiliary input. So if your radio has that, make sure you find the USB cord, which is something that looks like this. You got one side that's female, one side is male. This side is going to go to the radio. In this case, it's going to plug in there. And then this side is going to be fed somewhere, either to the center console or under the dash or wherever your customer wants it. Mounting the radio, besides the radio itself, you're going to need a mounting radio plate. We like to use this one, which is from SOS. This is the SOS radio cage. It comes with two pieces. It's a really nice little piece to have if you don't want to fabricate your own brackets. If you want, you can also fabricate your brackets using sheet metal. You don't have to buy this particular bracket, but if you want something that's plug and play, simple solution, this is the piece to pick up. So this piece, normally once you get the radio, is going to sit onto the radio like this. And then once it's in there, you can see it's got an infinite number of holes on the side. So this is where you're going to be as the installer. If you're the installer, if the shop is the installer, you're going to play with this thing to get that radio to align perfectly with the dash panel, and before you put the final carbon dash panel on. So this kind of gives you an idea of all the basic wiring components that we put into the NSX outside on the bench. It's a lot easier, I think, to see it this way. So if you guys have questions still, message me anytime, and then I will try to get back to you with the answer. Thank you. Okay, when we're talking about automotive, stereo wiring at least, there's always going to be a dedicated power cable that goes from the battery to the amplifier wherever we decide to put it. In this case, we ran a 4-gauge power cable directly from the battery here. You can see it's all flex loomed in, but the 4-gauge cable has been tapped directly to the battery. We flex loomed it, bring it around. We fused it with a 100 amp circuit breaker, which is mounted right there. That thing will protect the vehicle in case the power cable gets severed on this side, anywhere along the back of the car. So this thing runs all the way to the back of the vehicle, right? So anywhere, if it gets hit or severed, that fuse will blow and it'll protect the vehicle and disconnect the power supply. So this is going to be our main power source for the amplifier. We ran this thing through a grommeted firewall, which is right underneath here. You can see where it goes. And from there, it pops out in the passenger compartment, and then from there, it runs to the amplifier. Looking back inside the cabin, you can see where the amplifier is mounted. We just built a very simple wood baffle board for the amplifier. The Gyro amplifier is mounted here, so all the power cable, everything is run to this particular amplifier. This is running in 4-channel mode, so you can see it running 2 channels for the front speakers, and 2 channels are bridged to the subwoofer. The speakers for the subwoofer we routed to the footwell, where we're going to build a box for it later. But this is where the amp's going to sit when it's finished. When you're looking at cabin wiring, when you're looking at the interior cabin, the main wiring all goes to the head unit, which you can see is sitting right there. And I'm going to show you some of the wiring there, as well as some of the key components. Each double DIN head unit varies depending on what brand you get, what you're hooking up to it. But the basics are going to be, you're going to have to run the power the remote, the ignition, and then the ground. And then in this case, this unit's got a USB port, so you can see the USB cable right here. We ran the USB down underneath, hidden underneath, and it pops out right over here. We have it flush mounted in the coin tray, so that's going to go back on when the double DIN panel goes back in. Also, you have the microphone. The microphone runs to the Bluetooth with a hands-free. So you can see the microphone, in this case, we routed it up to the top right there. And then it runs down the side of the pillar, which you can see right there. We ran the wiring down. And from there, it reaches over to the radio, which is over here. With the speakers, the Hertz coax speaker installed, now we'll just put the door panels back on. Pretty much all stock looking. You can see the Dynamat kind of peeking out where the door handle is going to go in here. So that's where the door handle is going to pop back in. These pieces will be replaced to carbon fiber as well. So that'll be done in a later stage. But for now, we just put these trim panels back in. All right, from the driver's seat, you can see this door panel is also back together. So we're going to put the door handle back on. I wanted to give you a close-up so you can just see where we ran the wiring. So this black wire right here, you can see running down the side. That's your hands-free mic for your cell phone. And we mounted the microphone right up here at the top, so it's facing the driver. You see it right over here. Nothing cut, just ran the wiring, taped it down. I ran it under the footwell, and from the footwell side, it leads over to the radio, of course. So we're going to put this radio back in the car, and then I'll show you how the whole system works. All right, so we're looking at the Pioneer AVH 2500 NEX, and it's pretty much installed in the vehicle now. We haven't finished mounting or aligning the radio yet, but I wanted to power it up, show you what it looks like, and let's take a look. All right, with this radio, you can see it's working now. We're playing a DVD just to test a few things, but we ran the RCAs, 2 sets, front and rear, from the radio to the amplifier here behind the passenger seat. We also ran the microphone. We ran the USB cable, which this radio is capable of CarPlay. So we ran it to this little coin tray holder. So from here, you can plug it in and then be able to use the CarPlay feature as well. Go through the radio menu real quick so you can see right now we're playing DVD. It's got Bluetooth, it's got the ability to connect to your phone to do CarPlay. We're running a set of Hertz components in here because we're not cutting any holes in the door panels. The owner was very adamant about that. Here's the amplifier in the back. We're going to get it all cleaned up and then put the seat back in, then the car should be ready to roll. The only thing left is we still have to do the subwoofer and the footwell next, and then we're going to put the dash panel in a second here to test everything. Quick shot of the dash panel before we put it back on the car. So I've done all the alignments. We're using an SOS radio cage. The radio is already positioned in there. So we're going to do a final test fitment now. And then once this is done, then we can put the other pieces back in. We just put the coin tray on because of the USB cable. So let's see how this thing goes. All the alignment look pretty good. All the gaps look good. So we're gonna bolt this thing down and then we'll be ready to go. auxiliary cigarette lighter mounted at the bottom. Audison subwoofer hidden behind the floor mat. USB port mounted in coin tray for the Apple CarPlay. JR audio amplifier mounted behind the back seat. What is? Yeah, I think so.